Hello, everybody, and this was the song that we're gonna play at open house, and I wanted to run through it so you can have a chance to get stronger on it, rehearse it, play it, practice it, and perform well at the show. Um, some of the chords you already know, some of them you don't. There's quite a few things to add here. There's some strumming things that we have to work on. First of all, let me apologize for my voice. I'm a little under the weather, but we'll get through this. Okay, we have three verses here in the song, and each one ends a little differently. So let's go over first of all the verses minus their endings. So we get the main segment of the song down. I start with one measure of G. I use the pinky on the first string, third fret. Sometimes I use the ring finger on the same place. It doesn't really matter. Whatever's more comfortable, whatever you're used to, either one will work. And I do one measure of that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Next, I have a D7 chord. This is this chord right here. Pointer finger on the second string, first fret. Middle finger on the third string, second fret. Ring finger on the first string, second fret. And there you have it. So one measure of D7. Then we do an E minor. E minor is going to be just the middle finger here on the fourth string, second fret. And we get one measure of that. A little tuning issue here. One measure of E minor. And then one measure of C. Pointer finger on the second string, first fret. And that little segment, that little phrase all together looks like this. G, D7, E minor, C. The next little segment has ice cream chords, but in a slightly different key than what we're did. This one's in G. And we're going to strum every chord for half a measure. That means only two strums. So we got G for 2 beats. 1, 2. E minor for 2 beats. C. And D7. All together, that little segment. Now let's get through all the whole verse or the segment of the verse minus the ending. From the top. G, D7, E minor, C, G, E minor, C, D7, and that's the segment. All right, next thing we have to work on, the endings. As I said, there's three verses, and each one ends a little differently. The first and the last verse actually are almost the same, with slight little variations that we will go over in class. But in any case, I'll go over the differences in class, but here it is. We're going to do basically the same ice cream chords that we finished the verse with, but we're going to do a lot of rests here. Call them rests. For our purposes, we're going to do a fake strum there, where we're going to move our hand, but we're not going to touch the string. If our original, and basically it looks like this. As you can tell, I'm strumming one time. Instead of strumming 2 times, I'm strumming 1 time, and then the second time I just move my hand, but I avoid touching the strings, so I have longer ringing chords. G, fake strum, E minor, fake strum, C, fake strum, D7. And that's the first ending. With the verse before it, looks like this. I will go on also to say that this first ending of the first verse, we use it as the intro. We use it in a lot of different ways throughout the song. So it's a good segment to learn. The second ending is designed to take us to a different section. It's designed to take us to the bridge. This time there's no fake strums, but it does include a new chord, the G7. But the G7 is a pretty easy chord. You're going to play actually your pointer finger on the very first string, first fret. And this is going to be very useful for us once we get to the bridge. So the second verse ending is half a measure of G, half a measure of C, back to half a measure of G, and then half a measure of G7. So it looks like this: G, C, G, G7. And with the verse before that, and there you go. The bridge. The bridge involves a couple new chords. The hardest one of them is probably going to be the D minor, the very first chord of the bridge. It looks like this or like this. I got my pointer finger on the first string, first fret, my middle finger on the third string, second fret, and then the last thing I need to do is I can use either the pinky or the ring finger, whichever one's more comfortable for you. And I gotta reach all the way out here to the second string, third fret. Either one will do fine, depending on what works for you. I've used both options depending on what I do with the rest of the fingers and the rest of the song. Different people like different things, so experiment, try them both, see which one you like better. Also, don't forget to switch back and forth to different chords from it to see which one you reach faster. The good thing about this D minor chord is that we're coming to it from a G7, and actually we're switching from D minor to G7. So we got our pointer finger already set. And we're going to do half a measure of D minor, half a measure of G7, another half measure of D minor, half a measure of G7, and then 2 measures of C. So it looks like this: D minor, 1, 2, G7, another D minor, G7, and then C. 3, 4, second measure, 2, 3, 4. Next, we got basically the same thing, only in a slightly different, in a little transpose. So what we're going to do is E minor to A7. Cool thing about E minor, it's a pretty easy chord. Middle finger on the 4th string, second fret. And the A7 just means adding the ring finger on the 2nd string, 2nd fret. So we don't have a lot of motions going on here. And we're going to do half a measure E minor, half a measure A7, half a measure E minor, half a measure A7, and then we're going to do a measure of D7. Or we're going to play around with that D7. I'll go over that switch in a minute. Let's first of all start with the E minor to A7. E minor, A7, E minor, A7, I'm basically going from the, let's work first of all from A7 to D7. If you notice, my middle finger and ring finger maintain the same shape. They're just going to switch down one string down, and then all you have to do is add your pointer finger. Here's my A7. Two fingers move down parallel together, one string down, and I just add the pointer finger. Now I can stay on the D7 for two measures, but if you want to make it a little cooler and more interesting, you can do something like this. I'm kind of playing around with my ring finger, and I'm lifting it up. I get an A minor chord, but really it functions because it functions with a D7 in the way that it works in the song. It's not exactly an A minor, even though it looks like one. I'm just kind of lifting it up and putting it back down. E minor, A7, D. And that's the second half of the bridge. So here's a whole bridge together. Let me do it again. So here's the whole bridge together from beginning to end. D minor, G7, D minor, G7, C, E minor, A7, E minor, A7, D7, little decoration, back, and then we go back to the verse.